Welcome to the City of Bakersfield Planning Commission meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 10 a.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, Vice Chair Adam Strickland.
It is my pleasure to call to order the October 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chair Cater, Vice Chair Strickland,
Here.
Commissioner Bashir-Tosh, Commissioner Biddle, here, Commissioner Kaur,
Here.
Commissioner Coman,
Here.
Commissioner Neal.
Here.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for attending tonight's Planning Commission meeting. This commission provides an opportunity for public participation in the development processes throughout the city of Bakersfield. The Planning Commission considers a wide variety of projects, including subdivision maps, zone changes, and general plan amendments, and more. When applications are received, the City Planning Division analyzes the requests. Planning staff will present the facts about the project along with their recommendations to the Planning Commission, who will approve the item or make recommendations as appropriate. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public statements.
Public statements are now received at different times depending on the item. I will call on Madam Clerk to call for a public statement at an appropriate time, so please listen carefully to the correct time to speak. Does anyone in the audience wish to address the commission regarding items not listed on tonight's agenda? If you are here for non-consent public hearing item 6A, now is not the time to speak. You will be given an opportunity to speak at a later time.
Non-agenda item 3B, public statements.
Does anyone in the audience wish to address the commission regarding items not listed on tonight's agenda? If so, please come forward and state your name.
Vice Chair Strickland, I think you skipped on public statements for items on the agenda. So if there's anyone that wants to speak on items on the agenda, except for item 6A, you can come and speak now.
I'm going to redo that then, if we can just back up. Sorry, first time.
Agenda item 3A, public statements.
Got it. Does anyone in the audience wish to address the commission regarding items listed on tonight's agenda? If you are here for non-consent public hearing item 6A, now is not the time to speak. You will be given an opportunity to speak at a later time.
Non-agenda item 3B, public statements.
Does anyone in the audience wish to address the commission regarding items not listed on tonight's agenda? If so, please come forward and state your name. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 4, consent calendar items.
All matters listed under the consent items do not require a public hearing and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of said items unless staff or a commissioner requests specific items to be discussed and or removed for separate action. May I get a motion approving consent items 4A?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right.
Motion passes with Commissioner Bashir-Tosh and Chair Cater absent.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 5, consent public hearing items.
Now is the time for consent public hearing items. If the item is not removed by commissioner, staff, or a member of the public, the commission will vote on all items in one motion without further comment. If an item is removed, it will be placed at the end of the non-consent public hearing items. At this time, I will open the consent public hearing items. Does any member of the public wish to remove a consent public hearing item? Does any commissioner or staff wish to remove a consent public hearing item? At this time, the consent public hearing items not removed are now closed. May I get a motion to adopt staff's recommendation on the consent public hearing items not removed, incorporating all staff memoranda and revised staff recommendations?
I'll make a motion to approve all items under 5A, B, C.
Thank you, Commissioner Coman. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Core. Please cast your votes.
Motion passes with Commissioner Bashir Tosh and Chair Cater absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 6, non-consent public hearing items.
Now is the time for non-consent public hearing items. Before we begin, I would like to explain how the hearing will be conducted. Staff will first give a report, and then those in favor of the project will be allowed to speak. Those in opposition of the project will be able to speak after those in favor have spoken. Each side will be given 5 minutes to provide rebuttal comments. Individual speakers may ask questions during their statements, but questions will not be answered until the public hearing on that item is closed. Written comments may be given to the clerk, who will provide copies to the commission. Please be respectful of others participating in the hearing by not repeating the remarks of previous speakers and presenting new comments or thoughts in a clear and concise way. Mr. Johnson, will you please provide us with your staff report?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Strickland. Commissioners, member of the audience, thank you for attending tonight's hearing. This is a request from Buena Vista Water Storage District for several actions, which I will talk about in more detail in my presentation, to facilitate construction of what's called the McAllister Ranch Groundwater Banking Project. Project site is located in southwest Bakersfield, as identified on this map. Surrounding uses include to the north, a current water banking operation within the county, and some agricultural that's designated for future residential. To the east, you have residential and future residential. To the south, another water banking operations in the county jurisdiction, along with agricultural that's designated for future residential. And then to the west, you also have additional water banking operations within the county's jurisdiction. This project site is maybe more commonly referred to or known as the McAllister Ranch. This was a specific plan approved by Kern County in 1993. Covers just over 2,000 acres and was designed for residential, commercial. It had a golf course, schools, park, a lake, and multi-purpose trails. So to facilitate the proposed project of the groundwater banking, there were some project objectives that needed to be first identified as part of the environmental review. Some of those include that this project would assist in groundwater sustainability. It would conserve available water supply. It would provide water recharge, storage, and recovery capacity. Provide for flexibility for implementing conjunctive use programs. Increase the water supply reliability in the area. Reduce dependence on the delta, and also provide for an ecosystem. To get there, it needs a zone change. So we're going to be changing, or the request is to change from residential, commercial drill islands to agricultural with a water recharge combining zone. There will be an associated general plan amendment to 2 elements of the general plan. The first is to the land use element, which will go from existing residential and commercial to agricultural. And then a general plan amendment to the circulation element to remove the street alignments within the planned boundary area. Another action that's required is to rescind the McAllister Ranch specific plan, and this therefore will eliminate all goals and policies and implementation measures that were part of that plan. And through this, an environmental review was done through an environmental impact report, or EIR. That process consists of a notice of preparation, which was done in 2020. There were 5 comments received as part of that notice of preparation. There was a scoping meeting held in 2020 during the NOP process, and no comments were received. The draft EIR was circulated in 2022. 7 comments were received, and then the final EIR went out prior to this meeting. We received 2 comments on the EIR, the final EIR itself, along with 2 additional comments regarding the overall process. Those were transmitted in a memo to your commission today. One of the comments from the Kern Water Bank Authority came in a little bit later, and so the applicant is in the audience to address those comments in that letter. Otherwise, the comments to the Kern Water Agency who commented on the EIR are part of the memo that was prepared for your commission. As you may recall, when we discussed different types of environmental review, the EIR is really considered the heart of the California Environmental Quality Act. It is the most intensive environmental review you can do. There are required elements of an EIR per CEQA. That includes a project description, discussion of environmental impacts, analysis of impacts as measured against the baseline, alternatives to the project, mitigation measures, and discussion of cumulative impacts. And all those were in the draft EIR and final EIR. There were numerous factors that are required to be considered. The 4 on the top, starting with aesthetics. There was no impact to those 4: aesthetics, transportation, agricultural resources, forestry, and wildfire. The 8 factors you see under less than significant impacts were analyzed and determined that this project would have no, or the impacts to these 8 factors would be less than significant. The 8 factors you see where it says with mitigation measures, starting with air quality, there are mitigation measures that were required to address these factors in order to bring that down to a less than significant level. And there were no significant and unavoidable impacts identified for this project. Part of the request that we are asking of your commission in certifying the EIR is that you adopt a mitigation monitoring and reporting program. This is 34 mitigation measures that were identified for the 8 elements that I previously talked about: air quality, bio, cultural, geology, hazards, tribal, cultural resources, utilities, and cumulative impacts. Out of those 34, there was heavy emphasis on cultural resources and the biological. This is where the majority of those mitigation measures lie. And the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, or MMRP, as it's often referred to as, really shows the responsibilities of the contractor, the responsibilities of the city, a timeline for implementation, and then a checklist to make sure that those mitigation measures are complied with. So it's a living document is what it is. You also have to adopt CEQA finding 15091 findings, and these explain the lead agency, and in this case the city's conclusion regarding a project's environmental impacts, the reason for incorporating or not incorporating mitigation measures, and the reasons for selecting the approved project over the alternatives. So your commission does have several options on this decision tonight. You could approve the project as requested. You could obviously deny the request. If there are comments made tonight, where staff does not have the answer readily available, but we have a certain reasonable timeline to when we can get those, you can continue this project to a specific date, in which case we're either looking at 2 months, 4 weeks, and again, the first or third Thursday of every month. Or if there are questions of staff and the applicant and the consultant that cannot be answered or cannot be answered tonight and will take some time, this project could be referred back to staff, in which it allows time to obtain those answers and return to you, and that would be re-advertised for a future hearing at a date undetermined at this point in time. Based on what we have in the record right now, staff is recommending that your commission, adopt a CEQA finding section 15091, mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and certify the final EIR. Approve the general plan amendment to the land use element by changing the land use designations. approve the general plan amendment to the circulation element by removing the street alignments, approve the changes in zone classification, and approve the specific plan amendment to rescind the McAllister Ranch specific plan. And again, this is a recommendation that you will be making to City Council, who have final approval. Staff is available if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Johnson. The public hearing is now open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the project? Please step up to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Isaac St. Lawrence, and I am representing Buena Vista Water Storage District, the applicant for this particular project. As the last few years have demonstrated to us, we have an urgent need for more water storage facilities throughout California, but especially in Kern County. Water supplies in the last couple of years and historically in Kern County vary. For example, in 2021-22, the Kern River produced about 200,000 acre feet. In 2023, that number was 2.3 million acre feet. That's how the Kern River works. That's how our water supplies work. We have wet years and, unfortunately, extended drought. This project aims at being able to effectively and efficiently manage our water supplies here locally for agricultural purposes and to the benefit of the municipal purposes within the city of Bakersfield. The Kern Fan area where this project site is located is uniquely situated. With its sandy soil and proximity to the Kern River and existing facilities, it is perfect for water banking. Thus, it is surrounded by water banks. So, we have a unique opportunity to utilize this project site for a much needed purpose. The proposed project would involve the construction of water recharge ponds, conveyance facilities to store water when it is available. It doesn't have a specific water demand or need. Will very likely be dry, empty years, and empty when there is no water available. But when water is available under existing rights of the applicant, that water can then be put in those ponds, recharged, and stored in the subbasin for later recovery during dry periods. This will help the community with our compliance with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, known as SGMA, and provide our farms and economy with some much needed water during dry years. At full build out, the project could store up to 200,000 acre feet of water in a year. Now that's assuming that we have that much water available. That water could then be recovered at a later time, but there are parameters on that recovery to make sure that there are no significant impacts. For example, the project cannot recover any more water than has been recharged, less losses. The project cannot recover more than 56,000 acre feet in a given year to ensure there aren't impacts on neighboring wells. The project also has a long-term operations plan that is nearly identical to that of those water banks right around the project site. That operations plan provides for monitoring and ensuring that groundwater quality and levels are maintained. The project also is subject to an agreement with the city of Bakersfield known as a joint use agreement and mitigation agreement that specifically protects some of the city wells in the vicinity. This project accomplishes a goal of conserving available water supplies, providing for the efficient management of water, and benefiting the local ecosystem and water supply. We did receive some comments that are in the record. The San Joaquin Facilities Management comment letter and the Kern County Water Agency comment letter. Buena Vista supplied a response in writing to both of those, which are also in the record, and we have been in contact and communications with both of those entities and have satisfied their concerns. It's our understanding that they support this project. Regarding the Kern Water Bank's comments, which came in this afternoon, these comments are really a repeat of what they submitted on the draft environmental impact report. We feel that those comments are fully responded to and addressed in the final impact report. Just a few examples of that. The Kern Water Bank Authority stated that, or asked questions regarding the testing of water being put back in the aqueduct and whether it meets the standards. The Department of Water Resources controls what water can be put in that aqueduct. The EIR for this project specifically says that we will comply, we are required to comply with those standards. So yes, the water will be tested and be adequate quality to be put in the aqueduct if it is. If it doesn't meet that standard, it can't be placed into the aqueduct. The comment from the water bank also asked about a PALMS-related facilities, PALMS project-related facilities, and whether they'd be used to recover the project's water. The EIR specifically identifies the wells that would be used to recover water stored at McAllister. Those do not include the PALMS recovery facilities. That's very clear in the figures and the language of the draft EIR. The water bank also stated that there was new information provided in the final environmental impact report. However, none of that is material. CEQA guidelines sections 15008 only requires recirculation of a EIR when the new information in question is significant. And it's not significant if it doesn't change in a way that it deprives the public of meaningful opportunity. Here, there was no information that was added to the final EIR that meets that criteria. The water bank also has concerns about the modeling assumptions that were used in the EIR. Those were developed by an expert in the field and tailored to the specific needs of the project and used historical data. Buena Vista is not required to use modeling assumptions that the Kern Water Bank Authority prefers. So again, we legally complied with the requirements of SGMA. And finally, there were some questions about the long-term operations plan and whether it is an element of the project. Again, if they're looking into response to comment F-67, it is clear that that long-term operations plan is an element of the project and must be entered into for operations of the project. So with that, I thank you for this opportunity. Ultimately, this is a project that helps the area comply with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. It promotes efficient storage and use of water and ultimately benefits the local agricultural and municipal communities. And would request that you approve this as requested in the staff report. And I'm available for any questions should you have any.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak in favor of the project? Please step up to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed. Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of the project? Please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed. All right. Does any commissioner have questions for the public on this item? Remember, this is not the time to express any opinions on the matter. It is only the time to ask questions. Mr. Coben, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is going to be mostly to staff and to, I'm sorry, Isaac, I didn't get your last name, but you're with the Buena Vista Water Retention, okay. Is the staff confident that that the applicant has met all the requests that came in at the last minute today?
That's correct. And our consultant, who is an expert in this field, has also reviewed, and we believe that's correct.
Okay. Can you tell me what the effect is on the private property rights? Like, who owns this property now?
I can answer that. Buena Vista Water Storage District owns this property.
So you already own all this property?
Correct.
Okay. How does this plan tie into our current water use, water storage plan? It seems like there's, different districts doing different things, and is there a cohesive plan everybody's like on the same page about, or are you guys just doing whatever you want to do?
How long do you have tonight? historically, the agency districts have kind of managed their own areas. Under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, everybody has had to have a coordinated plan to ensure that the basin is sustainable. We are in the process of getting a plan passed through the state board and avoid probation. So I've been doing this in the water world for almost 20 years now, 18 years, and I've never seen the basin so coordinated as it is right now and working together. It's a little bit surprising, but it's a good change. So this is another facility that will work in conjunction with all the other facilities that are out there. Primarily utilized by Buena Vista, and Buena Vista has some other storage facilities that will no longer be available in the future. So this is kind of a replacement for that.
Is there are you gonna do any grading or anything out here, or is this gonna be just a giant vacant lot whenever there's not water on it?
There certainly will be grading, and that's all detailed in the EIR. There'll be levees that were built
Yeah, I didn't see any of that, and one of the stuff I was looking at, I scrolled through pages. I didn't see a plan of any kind.
Yes, but there are.
That made no sense
that's a
to
tough,
me.
but yeah, there's little ponds that are identified. Some of that. One of the unique aspects of this is the grading that was already done for the golf course that was out there. It was kind of inside, and really it avails itself to being a pond as is right now, but there would be additional levees that will be built to look like much of the other water banks that you see around the area.
It's all that other curb and gutter and debris that's out there, all going to be cleaned up, and so it's not going to be just like a.
Oh, correct.
Is
Yes.
it going to be fenced?
Yes.
Okay.
Buena Vista's already hauled off loads of garbage, as that area has been used as a illegal dumping site for
Right.
quite some time.
So we'll be continue to do that during forever and ever, right?
Correct.
Okay. Then my last question is for staff. I know you mentioned it in the staff report, the effect on our RENA numbers. Can you review that, please?
So this site was part of our RENA numbers in the last housing cycle, but this request came in well prior to the establishment of our current housing cycle that we're working on. So these numbers were removed, not considered, I should say. So they're not part of the housing element at all. It has no effect.
But you say in the staff report that you still have to submit something to HCD regarding the 5th cycle.
I would have to double check on the 5th cycle. So the 5th cycle, this was included in the housing element.
Right.
These housing units were. In our 6th cycle that we're working on now with the submittal that we're going to submit, we've already submitted twice. We have a 3rd one coming this month.
Right.
These housing units, in anticipation of this project, were not included at all.
All right.
So there is no effect on these housing units for RENA, unless, of course, it goes back to residential, then we would obviously grab these housing units as part of RENA.
Okay. I thought I read something about that. I'll take that you understand that. So if anybody understands that, I suppose you do. So I have no further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Coben. Commissioner Neal?
Hi, good evening. I have a couple of questions. Can you tell me about the Valley Fever Management Plan? I saw that in the EIR.
Yes, and Deb, I will refer to our expert from Montrose, that she can answer that question for us.
Okay.
Like that. Hello, I'm Deborah Lilly. I'm with Montrose Environmental. We're the environmental consultants that prepared the environmental impact report. The Valley Fever Management Plan is a plan that will be prepared before construction begins and grading takes place. Kern County and the Central Valley are very susceptible to the entities that cause valley fever. And over the last, say, 10 years, it's become much better understood, and people are much more aware of it than they had been in the past. The valley fever management plan that will be prepared will be a combination of measures that have been developed by the county and the state and CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, sorry. So basically, it will be a plan that informs the construction workers and the contractors how to reduce the risk of being exposed to valley fever, including masks, dust reduction, a bunch of other measures about wind and construction vehicles. Some of it is fairly standard dust reduction policies. There will also be some information provided in the plan about healthcare providers in the area who are familiar with valley fever, in case any of the employees or the contractors are affected.
What about the adjacent properties? Do you feel that the construction would impact, the people residing around the project at the time of construction and then on an ongoing basis as this project continues?
As I mentioned, most of the measures are related to or part of dust reduction, because that's how people are exposed. Most notably is through inhaling. And the dust reduction measures tend to be watering, not doing a lot of grading work when there's wind, reduced speed limits to avoid generating dust. And so those things are their purpose is to make sure that the dust doesn't spread off the site.
Yeah.
For those air quality measures, there will be, I believe, contact information available so that if someone nearby felt that they were being exposed to that, there would be a specific person they could contact at the city, and then that would be addressed. In terms of after construction, there shouldn't be any more issue because it's about disturbing the dirt. So once grading is complete and the project is operating, there shouldn't be any more concern.
That area gets really, really dusty. There's a lot of open fields out there. I don't live that close, but to live out that way. And this is a really large site. It's gonna stay just kind of dirt on top.
Well, ideally, it's going to be ponds filled with water.
Okay.
So when the ponds are not full of water, it will be exposed dirt, but there will still be dust reduction measures in operation, so that they have to take care of that.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Okay, and then another question about I'm just curious about the mosquito and vector abatement plan. How does that work?
That's a fairly standard policy that is provided by the Vector Control District. So that tends to involve treatments with certain, I don't know which, bacilli, small organisms that basically eat mosquito larvae. Mm-hmm. So any place where there are large standing ponds, there are treatments using those entities that reduce or basically eliminate the mosquito larvae so that they're not breeding mosquitoes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Neal. Commissioner Core?
Oh, actually, just to build up on that mosquito control program. So my question comes from, there's another water retention facility on Ellen and Ming area. Last year when we got a lot of rain, there was no mosquito control. The mosquitoes were invading all over that Highgate community. who is going to be responsible for maintaining? Is just the vector control? Because we called the department so many times, and it was impossible to contain those mosquitoes.
I would expect, and Paul or Tim or Isaac can jump in, but I would expect that it would be the vector control district working with the property owners so that they would have measures that they would discuss with the property owners to make sure that that takes place.
Okay. And my second question is probably to Isaac regarding the oil field operation. And then you mentioned in your comments today that there's going to be water tested before it gets into the aqueducts. If the soil is already contaminated and the water gets on it, it's not going to just leach into the groundwater already?
No, so we did soil sampling. Haro Environmental, a consultant hired by the district, did soil sampling and did 15 different bores throughout the entire project. They also dug 8 different trenches. In the boring, they didn't find any evidence of any contamination. Through the trenching, they found one area, and that was actually limited to 266 cubic feet of soil. It was what they identified us as probably, some gasoline spilled. So the district, prior to beginning operations of this project, is going to remove that soil and haul that off to the appropriate hazardous waste facility to dispose of it. So that alleviates all of that concern as it relates to leaching through there.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Cool. That's you good? Yep. Okay. I had a couple questions. I'm going to try and structure them. I'll go staff first, and then I'll come back to you. Sorry.
Nope.
For staff, it was a comment that came up from a property rights owner. I think it was resolved in the memorandum, but for properties that are within the zone change, we're saying that they're going to be grandfathered in, right? They're going to be legal non-conforming for oil and gas operations?
Existing would be legal non-conforming.
Existing, yeah. So is there any overlay for that, or we're just putting this as water resources and just grandfathering them in, but in the future, do they lose their capability to do any additional efforts?
So the municipal code has a whole chapter on legal non-conforming uses and legal non-conforming structures. So in this case, oil being a little bit different, generally speaking, you can keep a legal non-conforming use going indefinitely, provided that there's no stop in operation for a year. After a year, you lose that legal non-conforming status. However, oil is a little bit different. Let's just say they want to stop drilling, then there's still efforts that they would need to go into plug and abandon the well. So it would go past a year to ensure that that well is properly done with. But they have 1 year to, as long as there's not a break of more than 1 year, they can keep that legal non-conforming status indefinitely. They can drill for oil indefinitely as long as they don't stop for a year per se.
It's kind of a broad question, but are we sure that mineral rights holders in this zone are aware of that condition being applied? That if they, because it's not necessarily uncommon to idle or leave a well alone for a year, do nothing, and then come back, right? Are we aware that all property owners are aware of that and that they may not come back? Because there are a lot of inactive or idle wells on site.
So you're talking the mineral rights owners, not the property owners?
Both, I guess. I'll say property owners because that's probably easier to deal with.
I will say that Buena Vista is the property owner of all of this entire site. So the property owner is aware. Now, a lot of times these oil wells are done on leases, and not all mineral rights owners are required to be informed of actions that are occurring on the property, in part because some of these mineral rights owners have been there for decades and decades. Sometimes there's hundreds of mineral rights owners. And so actually, if you notice on some of our subdivision map acts, there are provisions within the Muni Code that allows for certain provisions where mineral right owners do not need to be contacted, certain waivers and exemptions. So for this project, I would safely say that not all mineral rights owners were informed.
I think it answers the question. Anything after that's probably a comment. Thank you. And then I think that would be it for staff. I have questions for the applicant, but can we go to you had the map with showing inactive wells in the presentation. Can we bring that back up? Or I think the site map that had the wells as well. Yes. So, thank you. So I guess the kind of continuing on the soil contamination discussion, looking at this map, we've got a couple of inactive wells that are going to be right in the location of ponds, right? It looks like, I'm assuming pond 1, 23, just to name a few, are going to be in that. There's no detailed drawing that shows kind of what the pond's going to look like, what kind of protection. Are those those inactive wells going to be submerged underwater at some point during banking?
No. Part of the reason you don't have that detail at the ponds is you have to get out there and start digging to see where the sand takes you. But the EIR specifically states that levees will be constructed to preserve existing petroleum facilities. So those will be island out or peninsulaed out or avoided by the ponds.
Okay, so on the detailed drawing for like pond 2, where if there are a couple of inactive, you're going to build levees around the wells all the way, so it's not a complete circular pond. There's a boxed off area that'll never get depth.
Correct. That's the intention, yes.
And the levee will be designed to what, the maximum height of storage plus?
I believe, and Tim, you probably know this, I think we can't go over 6 foot, otherwise it becomes a dam, if I remember that correctly.
It would look, the height of those existing there, they wouldn't really be dam, but be similar to the towers, like in the, there's already towers, ponds right near there. The big electric.
You got to come up to the microphone.
Sorry.
Yep. Nope. Good questions.
Yeah. I guess to get to the question
call
is
the engineer because that's over my head.
That's great.
No, they would just be. They probably would be exact at a little above the existing ground now, 2 foot higher. So the water level will not be. Probably will be at ground level or even below existing ground level in most locations.
Okay.
So it won't be difficult to do, and if it is, that's just brought in more dirt.
Okay. So
there's plenty of.
There's never going to be a condition where water levels crest the built levees. Okay. Thank you.
Sir, can you state your name for the record, please?
Sure. It's Tim Ashlock.
I don't want to jump around, but kind of going around some comments we had. I had a couple of questions I wanted to get the overview of operation. I read through the documentation provided. I got a general overview. Could you provide just high level, when is the site going to be active storing water? How often will it have water? Because I think it was a little conflicting in the documentations provided. So could you just give like a high level operation?
Yeah, it's estimated like twice in a 10-year period that we'd actually be recharging water, but it is all dependent on the hydrology and the water year. For example, in 2023, had this project been operational, we'd been recharging water. In 2024, most likely wouldn't have. There wasn't enough water available to recharge. So forecasting what it's going to look like is a little bit different because it really is just weather dependent.
Okay, yeah, so the operational documentation provided to the staff was operation December through July, 7 days a week, 2 employees on site, maybe some for deliveries. And then further on, it said that 85% of the time, these are going to be just dry ponds with no water. So kind of going back to Commissioner Core's question, Commissioner Neal's question around, I guess, valley fever control and that these won't be wetted ponds, right? These are going to be dry. Is there a plan to minimize dusting? Will there be spray-filled activities to keep these ponds at least?
The property is currently has dry dirt, and the district maintains that to keep dust down. And these ponds are probably going to improve conditions out there with the grading that goes on.
Okay, so there already is dust mitigation efforts in.
Yep.
Okay, cool, thank you. And then in the EIR under volume 19, they talked about some alternatives. And the only reason it stands out was one of the alternatives said that there are times where they can have adverse effects during very low groundwater conditions, and that alternative recommend the removal of Pond 24 as a mitigation effort. Could you speak to what the adverse effects during low groundwater conditions are and how removal of that pond resolves that issue?
My understanding is the removal of that section 24 relates to habitat and cultural resources that are in that particular section. You throw up that map that we were just looking at. That is the southwest corner
Right.
over there. And so that was that alternative to, we're just better to just avoid it than disturb that particular area. As it relates to the extended dry year periods, anytime you're in a water bank, you put water in the ground, then you start drawing it out. And if we have extended droughts, you're going to see some groundwater level impacts in that particular area. That's part of water banking. You also see benefits when you're recharging in that area. That's where the long-term operations plan comes in and make sure that those do not become significant. It's also, that area is subject to the Kern River Groundwater Sustainability Agency's Groundwater Sustainability Plan under SGMA, and so it will be subject to that. The city of Bakersfield is part of that Kern River GSA developing that plan, and so this project will also be subject to that to ensure that there aren't significant impacts on groundwater during those really dry periods.
Okay, and then following up, I'm glad we brought this drawing back up. The site 24 in that southwest corner doesn't show any kind of pond retention, but we're not proposing, and this may be a question for staff, we're not proposing the alternative, we're proposing the original, right, which would include a pond there, or potentially include a pond there, and potentially include disturbing that area.
I don't believe the district had any intention, and the district didn't have any intention of disturbing that section 24 there. There's some cultural resources and bio stuff. So yeah, that's, and that's why you see in our site plan there, that's in the EIR, it's not disturbed. There's no pond showing there.
Okay, I don't want to get too far into EIR discussions back and forth, but there was a recommendation to reduce the overall capacitance by 8%. By avoiding a certain pond, and I thought it was at 24. So
yes,
the specific reason was because it could have adverse effects during very low groundwater. So asked and answered, I guess. Good enough. And then the only other question I had to finalize was, my understanding is the flow, this doesn't increase the flow from the Kern River to the facility, right? You're using existing water rights. This doesn't increase water rights.
Correct. There will be no increase in water rights. These are existing water rights that are being utilized. So Kern River, or the Buena Vista, the applicant is the owner of the Second Point Kern River right, also has state water project water, so that can be brought in from the California Aqueduct and put into the property as well.
Okay. Thank you. That was all I had.
Thank you.
I will now close the public hearing on this item and return it to the commission for comment and action. Do I have commission comment or action?
Make a comment? Sure. I think everybody gets a little fearful when they see water attorneys in the audience, so I'm glad we're not going to be here for about 4 hours. But water is a major topic for every industry and every community member in Bakersfield, Kern County, and all of California. So when we see these water banks come up, I'm so glad to have heard all of your questions and concerns, and I think that really covered a lot of it. So I'm definitely in favor of this project and the water bank project. So I would like to make a motion to approve.
I will second that.
All right. We have a motion. Cast your votes.
Motion passes with Commissioner Bashir Tosh and Chair Cater absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 7, reports.
Does staff have any reports items?
I would just note that we will be having a meeting in 2 weeks on October 17th. We have a couple projects on the agenda. It'll be worth reading the agenda once that's released. Although you will get a copy of the hearing notices that go out. Thank you.
Just for clarification, Ms. King, I think I messed this all up. That wasn't reports, right? That was communications.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have no reports.
That's fine.
I'm not supposed to read the part there. It's a bunch of stuff.
We had some text in there, but we can just jump to commissioner comments, and then if staff has any comments.
So that's my report.
Madam Clerk, you figure out the next item.
We're going to skip to item 10. Agenda item 10, communications.
Does staff have any communication items?
Staff has none.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 11, commission comments.
Does any commissioner have any comments? Commissioner Neal?
I'll be out of town for the meeting on the 17th.
Thank you. You can watch it live.
I will say you can watch it live with probably my mom right now. Every one of these, everyone. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 12, adjournment.
This meeting is adjourned at 6:21 p.m.